Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So yesterday Far Cry 6 got released. I'm having a blast so far in the game. It's so much fun, just like the previous ones, but I thought it would be useful to share with you guys which items, weapons and armor pretty much I'm using, and of course also the modifications in my playthrough to help you out a little bit with dealing with both infantry but also more difficult targets like vehicles, tanks, and of course also the choppers early in the game if you get in trouble. So let's get right to it. Alright, so here we are at the workbench. Let me check out the arsenal for a second to show you every single item I have and also which modifications I use, because these make it so much easier. First off, I use Exterminador because I think it's a very powerful one against both choppers and tanks. I mean, just one charge can take down the entire vehicle. This item is very powerful early in the game as you won't have access to things like a rocket launcher or grenades. But if you want to go for some mods, I think you should definitely get your hands on even more explosives right here. Increase the damage of the Supremo as well. I also had made it so that headshot skills reward bonus Supremo charge because I focus on the headshots all the time. At first, I wasn't extremely happy with this one as it seemed to deal some pretty random chaotic damage, but then you quickly find out that to lock onto enemies can be extremely useful, especially for one-hit killing both choppers and tanks. Very nice early in the game. As first primary weapon, I'm using the Turn of the Sentry. I think this is a very awesome one to pick up early in the game. I already made a video about the location of it. Definitely make sure to check it out in the top right of the screen if you haven't already found it. But this one has a pretty large magazine, 64 rounds. It also has an improved reload speed, so you'll be able to just constantly shoot your enemies. And the damage is pretty decent as well. It has an improved recoil, so the accuracy is really nice. You also deal some potion damage over time. And you also have improved weapon damage to enemies at low HP. Makes it very useful for close quarter combat. As second primary weapon, I am using the MS-16S. I think this is a very nice weapon for both mid and long range, and you actually unlock it at the very beginning of the game. It also feels like the fall in Far Cry 4, one of my favorite weapons right there, but you should also definitely focus on headshots with this weapon because it will allow you to one-hit kill most of the enemies. So first off, I take the armor-piercing rounds to penetrate both helmets and body armor. Don't go for the bodies, guys, just aim for the head. It is pretty easy as the accuracy of this weapon is out of this world. If you combine this one with a Russian suppressor early in the game, I think you are good to go. I mean, this guy hits like a truck, takes down all those enemies with headshots, and in combination with some other modifications, this is going to be very powerful. I already experimented a little bit with the optical sockets, and most of them don't feel really nice. I mean, if you have this one, looks a little bit funky on your weapon. This one, especially with the laser, it's very confusing. But if you go with the ACOG, man, this works like a charm. If we leave the workbench for a second, you can see that this weapon has practically no weapon sway if you're aiming, and you can even hold your breath. I almost never do this because this one works just like a charm for mid-range, as you can see in this little clip, but definitely my top pick for a mid and long-range weapon. Alternatively, as second primary, you could also go with a sniper rifle, but I wouldn't recommend this as most of the times the combat will be mid and short range in this game, but it can be pretty useful. Also with armor-piercing rounds to get through those helmets, but the other weapon already one-hit kills them pretty much. Then we also have an American suppressor right here because this one actually makes a lot more noise. Then also an optical socket, large sniper scope, and then for the side socket, well, we could go for something like this, but we don't really need it. And because they quickly overheat, I'm going with a Keep It Cool mod to improve the suppressor cooling rate. Can be very nice if you want to take down larger packs of enemies. Then as primary third, guys, I am going with a resolver, and this resolver is the Pyro Techno. You could also go with La Clavadora, which can be fun to pierce enemies like a harpoon. But Pyro Techno, I think, can be extremely useful early in the game as you don't have access to a lot of explosives, so you will be able to take down all those kind of things like vehicles a lot easier. As modifications, you could really go with whatever floats your boat right here. I mean, there aren't many options either. I'm going with a long fuse, so they have a longer travel distance before they explode. Then also draw and holsters quicker. The older one is just a normal, so definitely don't go with that. And then also the projectiles do not lock on enemies. I mean, if you want to take down objectives with it, it's going to be a lot easier because sometimes the projectiles, they lock on targets, which you don't want to take down. So this guy looks extremely badass. I mean, it shoots firework literally. So you deal a lot of damage with that. The further you stand, of course, the more it will scatter out. But if you use it from close range, pretty much, it will be quite accurate. And yes, it can be used to chop down trees. Very useful, right? Anyways, as fourth weapon, I'm using the Autocrat. I think this one looks extremely badass and can also be found quite early in the game. It's a pretty simple pistol with diamonds on it. Honestly, I'm not really sure if this one is going to make a huge impact on your build, so it really doesn't matter. Alternatively, you could also go with El General, which can be found pretty early in the game as well. Already made videos for it, which are in the top right of the screen. This one is very nice for drive-bys, for example. And then, last but not least, also the gear or armor. I think this one is going to be a little bit more difficult to cover, as you will find a lot of these during your playthrough. But this is actually already a wrist gear, which you'll find early in the game and can be extremely useful. Greatly improves general defense while sprinting, which is, of course, both nice for attacking and defense when you're trying to run away from enemies. Then as boots or feet armor, I think the parkour kicks are really awesome. You can also find them early at the beginning of the game. So these actually improve your movement speed. Can be very useful for traveling in general, but also for combat, trying to sneak away, etc, etc. Then I also have the Scrounger jeans. I am not really sure if you want to go with something like this, but I think it can be extremely useful for repairing both choppers and tanks. If you're running through the entire map, doing a free roam pretty much, repairing your tools can be very nice. And in general, I think it looks extremely badass on my character. Then next up, I also found the Olua's Heart. This one reduces my movement noise in most situations, so I think it's pretty useful if you want to stay off the radar pretty much. It's not a item which makes you tanky. You could also go with something different, which for example improves your soft target round defense. This one is definitely very nice. You can also pick it off the merchants, but I really like to go with some stealth mode armor. Then, last but not least, I also have the Edel's Sigil. I found this somewhere in a cave and I think it looks extremely badass. So that is one of the main reasons why I'm using it. But in general, it also has some very awesome perks. Highlights both allies, soldiers, and animals at night. So I think this can be extremely useful for clearing forts, let's say, during the night. And of course, you also have some alternatives. If you want to go with a more assault type of helmet, then I would go with something like the Rioter helmet, also found early in the game, as well as the munition helmet. Anyways, armor is still sensitive and more difficult, as you will find plenty of these early in the game. I think you should definitely focus on those primary weapons. Those are the most important. They will allow you to get through those missions a lot easier. So guys, there you have it, my first build guide for Far Cry. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, definitely make sure to hit that like button and of course subscribe for more. Right now though, it is 4 AM out. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care. Peace.